All right, I'm going to slowly get started just to be respectful of everybody's time. My name is Rochelle Fajardo, and I am the training coordinator for All Chicago's HMIS team. And today I am presenting the second webinar about the new outreach path workflow that we'll be transitioning to on November 1st. So if you have attended the first one, you don't have to attend this one. There is a recording of the first one posted, but this will be a great place for you to ask any questions that you have as I walk through. So our agenda for today, first thing I'll do is go over some housekeeping items, just kind of go over what our webinar setup looks like, walk through a quick overview of our transition timeline and some important things to note. And then we're going to walk through the workflow and just a demo with a fake client through our training site. So housekeeping items. So our HMIS GoToWebinar setup is always similar. So our non-presenters, you as our attendees, are going to be muted. Please use the questions module feature on the dash of GoToWebinars shown in this image here. So right there, if you send us a question, I will try to answer as many as I can live. I do also have another team member, Mike Corcoran, that's going to be helping me answer some questions that you may have while I'm presenting. As a reminder, this webinar is not intended to address specific client data situations. So if you have a specific outreach question, specific client situation you'd like to ask about, please contact our help desk so we can more appropriately support you. It's a little hard with our limited time to walk through some specific situations here, and we just want to be respectful of everybody's time. And then finally, again, the materials are actually already posted. I'll send that link out in just a second. And the recording for the first one is already posted on there. This specific webinar right now will not be recorded. Okay, I'll pause right there if we have any questions about the setup. Next thing, I'm just going to walk through kind of like what the article looks like, how to find it, and just the timeline of this transition. So as of right now, this article that I'll be kind of walking through is featured at the front of our help desk page here. It's going to be the second Street Outreach Path Workflow 2023 update right here ready for you. And I'm going to post this link in the chat right now so you can walk with me if you'd like, have it ready for you later. So as a timeline, so on October 1st, we posted this article and we also sent out a COC newsletter item. If you are not signed up for that, please just go to this link here that I've already linked so you can sign up for that newsletter. Last Thursday, I believe, we had our first webinar that was scheduled, and that recording is posted right here. And as a reminder, you only needed to attend one. So if you attended the first one, you don't need to attend this one unless you would like to just walk through it again. And today is the second webinar that is available for you for questions and answers. The second thing that will also happen today is that LMS course, the courses that new users take, that will be updated with the same materials that I'm presenting you today with just some additional kind of assessment questions. So if you have any users or you yourself are in the middle of training and you have not started your proctor yet, you will then be prompted to start that course over just so you complete the new material. And that just, so what's going to be replaced is essentially most of the training will be removed. So all the videos are going to be removed. It's going to be replaced with these slides. So if you have any questions about that, I'm going to pause right now about training. If you already have HMIS access and you've completed the full training, you don't need to go through that. So that's something that I will say. Um, Pause right there. If you have any questions regarding that. All right. And then the last couple things. So this week up until November 7th, so for the next 2 weeks, some office hours will be available upon request. So if you just submit a ticket in regards to getting your agency more one-on-one time with this workflow, or you yourself just needs another walkthrough of what this workflow looks like, or if you have specific questions, now's the time. Please reach out. Let us know if you would like to schedule that office hour. And then on November 1st, that is next Wednesday, this new workflow will be in effect. The old article that's been still up will be deactivated, and the expectations moving forward will be using this workflow. And again, the webinar from last week is posted here. Some notable changes that will be happening. So previously there was three stages. It was called encountered, engagement, and exit, or post relationship strengthening. So encounter, engagement, relationship strengthening were the old stages. Those have now been simplified to contacts, engagement, and project exit. Some main changes to the workflow is that there will not be a need for documenting that positive or negative encounters with service transactions. And then we will need to add an interim review to document each contact. So I'm going to go into depth about that in a few minutes right here using the slides and a demo using our training site. I'm just going to pause before I get that started. All right, and then the slides that we'll be going through is right here. I'm just going to open a different window just so it's a little bit bigger. But just so you know, this does get bigger if you click this button here. It makes it full screen. Again, so this workflow, just an overview, we've got our contacts, engagement, and exit. So contacts are going to be defined as that interaction between the worker and the client designed to engage the client. So anytime before they have completed the complete assessment, that is just a contact. So when they decide to complete that rest of that entry assessment, that intake form that you guys have, and complete the release of information forms, they're now at the point of engagement. This is when we can assess them for their eligibility for other services as well. And then when they stop participating, that is our project exit. First thing we'll walk through is what documenting contacts look like. So again, contacts are defined as an interaction between that worker and client designed to engage it. And we're about to walk through how to do that. So examples of what contacts are would be just conversations between the worker and a client about well-being and needs, visit to discuss housing plans, and a referral to other services. So once we come in contact with a client, the first thing we need to do is find them in the HMIS, whether we need to complete a search or create a new record and a household. So we're going to do that right now. So first we would need to do a complete search. So let's say our name is Test Outreach. Best way to do a search and the most accurate way is to enter a social security number if you have it. something to note is that, sometimes clients will be unwilling to provide that full name that we need, or any other information. And that means that we probably can't search for that client. In that case, we would then use a naming convention so we're able to properly find this client later on and we're not making duplicate records. So as of right now, our current convention is that if they give the first name, use that first name. If they do not give the first name, we're going to use the date of the contact. Last name, if they have it, if they provide it, please use it. If they don't, we use a distinguishing characteristic or location. So in our case, let's say that their name is Tess, their last name, maybe their location, let's say state and lake. If they didn't give me a first name, this would be today's date. So October 24, 2023, right? And then maybe a time, 11 a.m. That would be what my name would look like if they did not give me either or. So let's start with that. We're going to search for that if that's anywhere. We're going to add them as a new client. Also, name data quality should be changed to partial, code name reported. That is written here. So when you're using a naming convention, make sure you are selecting partial, street name, or code name reported, just so we know what kind of name you're providing. I'm going to add this new client. Anytime you create a new client, please make sure you are adding them to a new or existing household. We're going to just create a new one for our client. Mail. They are already down here, and I'm going to click continue. They are, yes, head of household, relationship to head of household is to self. Save and exit. Now we have our client first contact. Okay. Our next step after we have searched and or created a client, after that, we need to then enroll them into our outreach project. And then within that entry assessment, we need to complete 3 things. These first 2 questions, relationship to head of household and the client location, which is now actually enrollment COC. And then we need to add a current living situation entry that reflects the date and location of that first contact. And go back to record. So normally we would complete an ROI, but in our case, since they are not engaged yet, we don't need to do this yet. Go to our entry exit, add an entry exit. I'm going to enroll them into our outreach project. I'm going to include this household number. Type is HUD. Save and continue. Since we are in the training site, this is still the old assessment, so just keep that in mind that normally in the new one, this would look a little bit different with the new data standards changes. So all we need to answer is these first 2 questions and the current living situation, which is self, Illinois 510. We would fill out what information that we do have, which at this point, we'll just pretend like we don't have any information. Go all the way down to our current living situation, sub-assessment, make this a little bit bigger for you. Add, so again, our start date is today because we're documenting that contact. Our information date is today. We're pretending that today is when we met with our client. And then just the location of this contact. We'll say place not met for habitation. And then is the client going to have to leave? Say no. Save. That is all the information that we have for our client so far. So we are just going to scroll and save. Again, if you have any of this demographic information, great. If you don't, then you can't answer it. Save and exit. So that is our first contact. Again, number 3 says prioritize collecting the following data if you have it. So we understand that most of the time it does take more than one contact to get a client engaged. So this is kind of one of the main things that will change in this workflow, is that to document additional contacts, we would need to now create an interim review with a current living situation entry. So in this in the slides, this is how it would look like. So for each contact, we would create a new interim review, and then alongside, we'd create a corresponding current living situation entry every time. So that would look like, so we'd go back to our client record here, right? And we are meeting with them again. So we're going to add an interim review. Let's say update. Let's say we met with them the next day. Save and continue. Make sure you are in the update assessment. And we are just looking for the current living situation sub-assessment and adding another one. Okay, with the start date of the new contact, information date of the whenever you contacted them again. We're going to even say they're staying in the same place. Save. And if I have other information that I collected on 1025, I would go back to the entry assessment and add that in. Let me do it again. So say I meet with them another time a couple days later, and 26, save and continue. All I need to do is add another current living situation entry with that new, say we met them at emergency shelter this time. So now here is our 3 contacts with our client. Any questions so far on how to document contacts? So this last slide here just kind of walks through the sample client that I had in the slide deck, and you're more than welcome to watch that in your own time. But since I already demonstrated it for you right now, I'm not going to watch this. I'm going to pause for a second for any questions regarding the contacts. Great. So after contacts, we have engagement. So an engagement is when the client has now decided that they would like to complete the rest of the assessment and develop a case plan to kind of move on with services. So this is also when the process of data quality expectations begin. That means that in order for your client to be counted as enrolled into your project, this date of engagement needs to be entered. Not only does it need to be entered, it needs to be at least after this start date here. So it is okay that if you meet them on the first day and they decide to engage in that first day, as long as you enter in the assessment that their date of engagement is 10/24, then the data quality expectations have been met. Okay. If I enter in this client 10/23 and their date of engagement is 10/24, that is still also okay. But if my date of engagement is before the start date, it is invalid. Okay, so make sure that it is after the start date. So that is our date of engagement. So we're going to walk through how to complete that process. So at this point, they are now engaged. That means we need to first complete a release of information. So this process is similar to how we've completely done them before. There should be 2. And they should start on the date that they are engaged. So now we are back in our client record. We're going to add a release of information, include our client, leave your provider as is, release granted yes, and then we'll say that we are engaged on the 30th. Okay. We're going to add 3 years to this. We'll say that they want to share, and then I'm going to save. Do another one for disability. Yes. Start date 30, which is our date of engagement. Add 3 years. Supplemental. And a witness. Next step would be to then document our contact and date of engagement using the same process, interim review. I'm going to go to my entry exit. Again, interims right here. Add a new interim review. Going to be update. Change the date to our date of engagement. Save and continue. Again, I want to make sure you're in the update assessment. Scroll down to our current living situation. Add a new entry. Starting today. Information date today. We'll say we're at a shelter now. And then they do not need to leave. Save. Then I'm also going to add an end date to these other ones, so we only have one that's valid. So okay. We're also going to add a date of engagement this time. So I'm just going to click this button at the end that populates the same date as the assessment. Okay, so all we did was add this new entry. We added some end dates to the old ones and the date of engagement. Save, save, and exit. So there's that terminal date there. So we documented our contact and date of engagement and current living situation entry. Final step is to update all their information in the entry assessment along with their name and demographics. So first, let's update their profile. So at this point, since they have engaged, I would imagine that they have given a real name. So we're going to say test outreach. We're going to update this to a full name reported. We're going to add a social. Full social. You're not a veteran. Save. Then I would also go back to my entry assessment. Remember that, the first one. And at this point, I would complete the entry assessment as usual. Again, the last slide kind of walks through what I just did with a different client and the old UI. I'm going to pause right here for any questions regarding the date of engagement and documenting that. Awesome. We are quiet today. I hope that means that this workflow makes sense and we have no questions and we feel confident in being able to do this afterwards. All right, our final step is going to be that project exit. Okay, and this is when the client stops participating in the project or stops receiving services from that project. This happens when they've entered another project or otherwise found housing. It also, we do understand that, and it is okay that sometimes some agencies have that transition period that's like 30, 60 days where you are still checking in and are still you still have that client enrolled in your project while they're transitioning to a new one within their housing or whatever that new project might be. That is totally acceptable. Just as long as it is that small window that is determined by your agency. Another reason to exit them is if they're engaged with a different outreach project. So at that point, you would exit them without a transition period. If the client has died, you would exit them. And then if you have been unable to locate the client for an extended period of time, so again, that time period is determined by your agency, whether it be like 60 or 90 days. At that point, if you are unable to locate them for a period of time, you would enter their exit date as the last recorded current living situation entry. So in our case, if our client somehow like they decide to engage on 1030, but then they disappear for about 3 months and I don't ever hear from them, I would exit them on 1030 with that date. 2-3 months later. So if that was the case, my exit date would be 1030, and then my reason for leaving would be unknown, disappeared, and then their destination would be no exit interview completed. Okay. Otherwise, it would be just the date they stop receiving regular services. And so you would complete this as normal. So let's just leave this as is for now. And then if you are able to, and they do voluntarily depart your project, you would update the exit assessment as normal. And finally, there is, the assessment. Any questions about exits? So just a quick summary of this whole workflow. We again have our contacts, engagement, and exit. And the contacts is that just initial interaction with the worker and the client to try to engage them. At this point, the only thing the HMIS tasks would be, so to enroll them in that project for that first contact, we need a current living situation entry for every contact, and along with that interim review. So these two go together. And so just a current living situation entry and an interim review for each additional contact. Once they have decided to complete the rest of the entry assessment and complete a case plan, they are now engaged. So at this point, make sure to complete the ROI, document that contact again with the current living situation entry and interim review, include a date of engagement, and then again go back and complete the rest of the entry assessment and correct the client profile if necessary. Finally, for the exit, that's when the client stops participating. You just need to add an exit date and a current living situation entry at that point, and add any updates if it's applicable. And that is all. Time, we did go over time by about a couple minutes, so you are more than welcome to leave if you have no additional questions. I will stay for an extra 3 minutes or so to just see if anybody has any lingering questions. Otherwise, thank you all so much for attending webinar number 2. And if you have any additional questions that come up later on, please don't hesitate to reach out to the help desk. I'd be happy to help. And again, there is office hours open these next 2 weeks. Yeah, thank you. And have a good rest of your afternoon, y'all.